proficient surfer. They sit out there in the ocean waiting, and they let a wave go by, and they let the next one go by, and they let another one go by. If they jump on the first one, they surf more. But instead what they'll do is they might sit out there for 5, 10, 15 minutes, letting waves go by. Why would they do that?
Oh, well, I imagine the only logical reason is they're waiting for the right one.
Exactly. What's the right one? One that challenges them. It's one they're waiting for the
one right on the edge.
Right on the edge. Exactly right.
Doable but difficult.
Doable but difficult.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Chasing Excellence. Every week on the show, we dedicate some time to exploring how we can live a life of better health and increased fulfillment. We answer your questions about the 5 factors of health, dive deep on living a life of excellence, and explore the strategies and frameworks to help us chase what truly matters. My name is Cummings, here as always with Mr. Ben Bergeron. What we've got for you this, I didn't even say hi to you. Hi first.
I realized that and I was like, oh, this is kind of nice. Let's just go. You always say, how the heck are you? It's very like, okay. How the heck are you? And
it's because we've been talking for 10 or 15 minutes and I forgot that now we're recording. Other people didn't hear that part. Okay. So we've got this week, listener questions about double enter modifications, caffeine intake, and your advice to the grandfather of a dyslexic kid. Our workout will be a conversation about how to start making forward progress again after dealing with some frustration. And we'll wrap up by giving you and each other some permission to do something that perhaps we should be doing, but are not yet. Couple quick admin announcements. This is a question that I got from Masick. I don't know if I'm pronouncing your name right. I apologize if not. But he or she says, I have feedback for you to consider to make the podcast even better. Would you consider a different option to support the podcast and remove the ads, perhaps a Patreon subscription or something similar? Yes, in fact, we do. If you head to www.chasingexcellence.email, you can sign up for a free newsletter, and then you can also upgrade to get those ad-free
Such a good suggestion, Masick. That's the reason we did that. We listened to your suggestion, and that's so right.
And we've got something in that upgraded premium membership that we're excited about. We've talked about it before. We are going to do a Chasing Excellence book club. We're still working out the exact details, so the details will come to those folks who are inside of the premium membership. But we're announcing it today, and in 30 days, we're going to kind of close it out. The first book we're going to do, and I'd love to know kind of just a quick high level from you, Ben, why this book is so important. By Patrick Lencioni, a book called The Ideal Team Player. Give us the super high level. Why is this a Chasing Excellence book? Why do we want to do this one?
Okay, Patrick Lencioni is a fantastic business writer. Business author, if that's such a thing, but he writes in such a fashion that the first half of his books are parables. They're stories, incredibly easy to read, incredibly fast reads. He wrote one of the seminal books on team dynamics called The 5 Dysfunctions of a Team. I think that most people will be familiar with that book, at least conceptually. This is his kind of secondary book. And it's where we got humble, hungry, happy from. Mm-hmm. He doesn't use those words exactly, but it's an amazing story about what it means to be an ideal team player. Mm-hmm. We have every one of our employees read this book during their onboarding process. We think it is incredibly foundational. And, I gave a talk this past week at Middlebury College, and the person that introduced me, invited me up there, in the introduction said, I got this concept of humble, hungry, happy from Ben, and I've actually told all of the students here, if they were ever to answer a question in a job interview, what are your strengths? That should be your answer. Humble, hungry, and happy. It is an incredible understanding of what it means to be a great team player. To me, there might not be a better thing that you could aspire to be than to be a great teammate. And that, and teammates, use the word team as however you want to.
Right.
In an athletic setting, in a business setting, in a family setting, in a
friendship,
and the way that I kind of said, what about in terms of humanity? You are a teammate to all other human beings. Is there anything better than you could do than to represent these character traits, which represent the ideal team player? So that's where we're starting with, and I think it's a great place to start. It's where I start with my employees.
Love that. Okay. So if you'd like to join us for the inaugural Chasing Excellence book club, upgrade your membership over at www.chasingexcellence.email. We'll send out some information, but for everybody else, this is our invitation. We're going to talk about it again in about 30 days. So we're going to give ourselves about a month to read this book. And then Ben, you and I are going to get together. We're going to kind of talk about some big ideas and go from there.
It's also a great, this is a great example of one of our principles, which is like build, measure, learn, like jump and grow wings on the way down. Yep. You don't have to have it all figured out before you do it. Just start. So this is like we're sharing this very transparently with you guys, that this is the way we believe that is a core principle in life and business. Don't wait for perfect. Just go, act, do the thing, have awareness, intention, but take action. So if we want to create a book club, if we want to build out this thing, we're going to do it with you guys in real time. So we're not going to wait till we have the whole thing figured out, because what happens when you do that? You end up just waiting, and you're going to make all the changes anyway. It's never going to be the way you kind of thought, envisioned it rolling out anyway. So let's just do this thing and build it as we go.
Yeah, love that. All right, cool. That's enough of that. Again, the link is in the show notes if you want to join us. We look forward to it. We thank you in advance. All right, our warm up. We start each episode with your questions about the 5 factors of health, those few fundamental behaviors that most positively affect our performance, vitality, and longevity. Those 5 factors: how we eat, how we move, how we think, how we connect, and how we recover. We have, as we always do, have 3 questions. We've got one in the move category, eat category, and the think category. First is in the move category. It's from Darren. What is a good modification for double unders or jumping in general? I usually go to a machine, but what is something a little more synonymous with the movement itself?
If you're going to go to a machine and you have it, we like ski erg, just because it's such a different movement pattern. It's kind of, because I'm guessing that the reason most people go away from double unders is because something with their lower extremity, right? That's that kind of the obvious. It's either their Achilles or their knees or something else. So the ski allows us to kind of use an upper body thing that's a little more taxing on the shoulders, which is what double unders do. Okay, but Darren's question spot on. That's not what I use as a substitution. I substitute running. It's not because I can't do double unders. They're actually one of my better movements. It's that I've found over the years that double unders jack up my Achilles really bad. I used to think it was running because I would feel it so much when I ran. I had to limit running so much. Since removing double unders from my training repertoire, I do running whenever it shows up. Running doesn't bother it. I don't experience the same soreness afterwards. And if I'm going to choose one over the other, double unders or running, I'm going to choose running a gazillion times over, because it is way more of the functional movements. I actually could argue that running is the most functional movement. People go, no, it's a squat. No, it's a deadlift. No, it's a press. Well, to me, being able to move your body from one spot to another spot horizontally across the earth is probably the most important thing that you can do as a bipedal animal. So I'm going to choose running. I think it carries over to so many different things. Double unders, cool. Little more party trick than it is transference over to other activities like running does. If you play most, I'm not going to say all, but most sports involve some form or fashion of running. Certainly life rewards those that can run. If the zombies were come, you'd want to be able to move across the earth for long distances, either fast or slow. That is running. So that's my substitution, as long as we're talking about it just as truly what are some alternatives, not because I have this injury, because I have this limitation. It's just I want to do something different. It's running.
Got it. Love it. All right. Next question is in our eat category. It's from Tyler. I'm a graduating medical student and soon to be emergency medicine resident. Prior to med school, I used to be very caffeine naive, but during school, I acquired a pretty significant tolerance and honestly dependence to the point of being able to drink a rain or two a day without any issue. I'm 3 weeks into a complete caffeine fast to try and reverse the tolerance I've acquired, but I'm trying to figure out how to use caffeine healthily during a difficult schedule. I've worked night shift previously and I've just drugged myself along with a cup of coffee that didn't do much. I know that when people's lives depend on me, being very tired at work isn't an option. Knowing I will be working these types of schedules for the rest of my life, I want to find a healthy balance where I can use caffeine to help me get through late long night shifts and 24-hour shifts, but not fall back into drinking unhealthy energy drinks on a regular basis.
Cool. To start off, we are not against caffeine. Caffeine can be used appropriately. And was it Tyler? Is that the name?
Yep.
Tyler, it's a great question. So yes, and you're doing the exactly right thing. If you find yourself dependent or overly reliant or immune to it, a fast total substance removal away from it is the way to do that. It will make you sensitive once again to it. When you reintroduce it, some really concrete suggestions here. A Reign or two. A Reign has 300 milligrams of caffeine. One of those, totally appropriate. Two of those, not. That's actually like the recommended daily allowance, if that is actually a thing, is 450 milligrams. Each of those has 300. So you're doing one, no big deal. You're doing two is 600. You're way, way over by a long shot. So having one of those, and let's not get into discussion of like energy drinks versus like, you know, the health benefits of energy drinks versus caffeine pills versus coffee or tea. Let's just talk blanket statement caffeine. I think it's an easier discussion. The way that the suggested protocol is you could have up to 450 milligrams. I certainly would like to see that closer to 300. I think 300 would keep you stimulated without tipping over into the need for it becoming more of a problematic. And we want to do no more. I think 150 milligrams a serving is the right way to do that. And 2 servings a day is the way to do that. So upon waking, whether that's 30 minutes after waking up to an hour after waking up, is a totally appropriate time to do that. And then the next one is at least 8 hours before bedtime. So if you go to bed at 8 p.m. Before noon, if you go to bed at 10 p.m. before 2. Now, he has a night shift, so just kind of like do the math to figure out what that looks like. And that is the protocol that I suggest. 300, ideally, maximum of 450, spaced out, making sure that you're ending before 8 hours before bedtime.
Last question we've got is in our Think category. It's from Mar. I appreciate Ben's podcast on being dyslexic. My 8-year-old grandson has been diagnosed as dyslexic. The neuropsychologist wants him to go to a school to teach him the tools he needs to reach his potential. If 8-year-old Ben was given this option, knowing what he knows now, would he rather stay at his neighborhood school or struggle or switch schools for a few years?
That's a great question. Yeah. 8-year-old Ben. So 8-year-old Ben would rather stay in school because 8-year-old Ben didn't know that he had that issue. 47-year-old Ben, going back to being an 8-year-old Ben, would probably rather go to the school to learn the tools. That's easy for me to say because I'm not that 8-year-old with friends with a certain. So obviously the answer is there's a lot of depends on this as well.
Yeah.
Dyslexia is not binary. It's not like you have it or you don't. It's on a spectrum in terms of like how detrimental, how much it affects things. I don't believe I was severe, if that's the right terminology. I'm sure it's not. But I think I had some mild to light dyslexia, and still do. I think it would have been cool to have more tools to understand how to navigate it. The weird thing is, like, how long are we talking about going to that different school? And then who are your peers in that school? So, are you going to that school for a quarter, half a year, or are you going to that school for the remainder of your career? And are you going with people that are have serious learning disabilities while you're only mildly affected? That's all the stuff that I can't answer because I don't know about the school. I don't know about the kid in general. I would love to have had some extra little tools, and going there for probably 3 to 6 months, I think it would have done a world of good for me. I did work with certain teachers and programs during school, but it certainly wasn't enough. It was, meet for an hour or two, once or twice a week. And it was so young back then in terms of the understanding of what it was, the tools that we had. It was basically just more support. It wasn't, here are the tools you can use to navigate your special circumstances. So if the school is really effective and appropriate, then I would suggest doing that rather than just struggling. It's kind of like you're starting CrossFit and you're struggling big time because you can't learn the movements and you just doing the regular class is not getting up to speed. Do I think it's appropriate to do some one-on-ones on the side? Maybe not do classes for a while until you get the tools to be able to do that? Absolutely. Not everyone has that opportunity, but if you do with a great coach that knows how to work you back into the program, absolutely. I think it's the right call.
Yeah, that's a great point. The one question, or the one thing I was thinking about with this question, because obviously I didn't have that same experience, but I do have a 7-year-old now. And obviously I know you've got kids who are past this age, but how helpful in your mind, maybe just thinking back whether or not this happened to you or not, but how helpful is the label of you're dyslexic and now here's what we do because of that, versus, I'm taking a wild guess here, that label might not have been given to you and maybe it's something only you figured out years past 8, 9, 10, 12, when you're like, oh, maybe this explains some of that. Again, just thinking about, your own kids. And again, I'm just thinking about my own kid. Like, is the label helpful, or do you feel like the label is in some ways a detriment? So
for me as 8-year-old Ben, it was a detriment. It was, but it was so different then. It was you're different. I interpreted it as you're dumb. And I don't know if that was my own insecurity or that's the way it was messaged. You can't keep up. You don't learn the same way as everybody else. You need more help. But this is where I think it's very different, both in terms of the support, but also just the way kids are now. Like they're so, people knock the younger generation a lot. And sure, there's things that we could, they're entitled and they don't have work ethic and they're soft and all those things. What they have, though, that we did not is a level of vulnerability and understanding, and weird is kind of cool. It's just so different. Like our kids are so okay. Everyone, like, it probably has to do with social media and everyone, like, you can be like, unless you were in drama and going to be an actor or actress with back in the 80s and 90s, you did everything you could do to conform. Like conformity was like the number one thing. That is not the case with kids today. Like that's not like kids want to be different. They want to be special. And the level of vulnerability they are with exposing weaknesses is just so foreign to our generation that they just accept as norm. So kids are like, yeah, like, I have this learning disability. I have this physical impairment. I have bad skin. I have acne. It's like, I'm so awkward. I'm clumsy. It's like people, they own it. They own it in a really cool, awesome way. So while I interpret it as a detriment and a label of something that I needed to hide and try to keep other people from knowing, and certainly it kind of crushed my own confidence. I don't think that would be the case for kids in growing up that are 8-year-olds now. I think it's a very different world that they're experiencing than what we went through.
Take that. All right, cool. Thank you for those questions. If you'd like to get a question into the queue, the best and fastest way to do it, get on the email, www.chasingexcellence.email. We send out a note every Friday with a link to a form, and you can ask your question and get it right into our queue, and we will do our best to get it into a future episode. We're going to be back with a question from Georgie about how to rise above and get beyond frustration to keep making progress. But first, a quick word of thanks to a few sponsors. We're brought to you this week by Momentous. Are you struggling with poor sleep? Let us introduce you to Momentous Sleep, a product that combines magnesium, L-threonate, apigenin, and L-theanine, ingredients known to help you fall asleep faster and wake up fully recharged. Head to livemomentous.com and learn more and get yourself 20% off when you use the code excellence. We've all tried various sleep aids to try to get asleep and stay asleep. And once you try Momentous Sleep, you'll know you found the cream of the crop. It comes in handy individual packs, so you can always have them in the bedside table or your travel bag to ensure you're getting the sleep you need to win at life. Momentous products contains no banned substances or toxic contaminants, which is, a good thing. Because of that, they're used by 90% of teams in the NFL and are trusted by the U.S. military. So start your journey toward better sleep today. Go to livemomentous.com. Use the code excellence to get 20% off sleep and all of their other best-in-class products. That's livemomentous.com with the code excellence for 20% off. We're also brought to you this week by Element. Element is a zero-sugar electrolyte drink that's perfect for anyone looking to restore health through hydration. It also happens to be incredibly tasty. Head to drinkelement.com/excellence to learn more and get yourself some of this salty goodness. Element is formulated for everyone from athletes and those on a keto or paleo diet to folks who just want to enjoy a no-sugar mocktail. Element is trusted by many, from Olympic athletes to NFL players to special forces and health experts. Not only that, but they've just released a new chocolate medley featuring chocolate mint, chocolate chai, and chocolate raspberry, specifically designed to be enjoyed hot. Perfect for this winter, whether you're hitting the slopes or just cozying up at home with a good book. You can get a free Element sample pack with any one of your orders. Just visit drinkelement.com/excellence. Try Element totally risk-free. If you don't like it, it's on them. They'll give you your money back, no questions asked. That's Element. Give it a try and stay salty. All right, our workout. This is a question from Georgie. I'm in the process of creating a website that offers healthy cooking courses and nutrition coaching. To handle the technical side, I hired web developers. However, as the project progressed, their service became increasingly unreliable, and I found myself dealing with numerous quality issues, pushback for essential fixes, and resistance in delivering the work they committed to at the project's outset. I took the decision to end the contract at my own financial detriment. The entire contract spanned 6 months, during which my energy was consumed by constant battles and negotiations, diverting my focus from the main goal of building my courses. Now, as I attempt to re-engage with the project, the initial inspiration, creativity, and motivation are overshadowed by frustration with the developers. Have you ever had to pick up work with negative experience attached to it? If so, could you share tips or wisdom on disassociating from the negativity and rebuilding the momentum, inspiration, and creativity for the project? It is not often that we get a question that I read and I think Ben might have some very personal experience with this problem. And so given our closeness, I know that this isn't too far off from a situation that you/we/the entire CompTrain team has been kind of working through. So I thought it would be an appropriate chance for us to talk through some of these things, talk through some of the process through which we can get from where Georgie is or where Georgie was when she sent this question and to the other side of it.
Okay.
So I'd love to hear just initial thoughts first.
Initial thoughts are, this is more the norm than the exception. This is what we should be expecting. This is getting a project up and off the ground. This is what happens. So whether it was opening my gym and getting hiring contractors to do the build out, that didn't go like expected at all. Like in terms of timeline, expense, like everything got thrown out the window. And man, was that frustrating. Is this what I signed up to do? Not at all. I signed up to coach classes, make people healthier and happier. I did not sign up to manage people on drilling holes in floors and putting in pipes and hanging up so right from the very beginning of being an entrepreneur, that part, to hiring coaches. The first coaches we hired weren't what we thought we were getting at all. And it's like, so we put a lot of effort and energy into building them up and onboarding them and coaching and training them, only for them to either not pan out or leave to start up other gyms. So yes, you invest the resources in and it doesn't pan out, becomes incredibly, big air quotes, frustrating, but let's come back to that.
Yeah.
All the way to like maybe later on when I, wrote my first book and hired a company to help me write it as ghostwriters, and it didn't work the way I wanted to. So fired the ghostwriter and hired a second ghostwriter, and that didn't go the way I wanted to. So fired that and paid for both of them. And the ghostwriter didn't work out, and only on the third one did it work out. So all the way to where we are today, trying to launch our third app, and we're coming up against literally verbatim, if you subbed out a few words here or there, Georgie's is like explaining exactly what we're going through right now with the developers and with the frustrations and all of the rest. All that to say is, I'm not saying this in a snide way. I'm saying this in a truly heartfelt way. Welcome. Welcome. Like this is what being an entrepreneur is. When you're trying to create something on your own from scratch, this is the norm. Now, it doesn't always go that way, but the exceptions are when everything goes smooth. Mm-hmm. We should not go into any projects expecting brick paved roads, sunshine, rainbows, unicorns, and all the rest. It's going to be, this is why, George, you're not the first person that's thought about creating a website with healthy recipes and teach people how to cook and teach people about nutrition. Very few people pull it off on a high level because of all the frustrations along the way. Now, this isn't a thing of like, this isn't a message about grit and determination and stick with itness. And it's about the people that are consistent and do it the longest. This is more a conversation about leveling up mindset. And if happiness is reality minus expectations, and the reality which you're experiencing right now isn't what you expected, it's not about, we talk about this a lot, but it's not about lowering your expectations. It's about the ability to accept reality. And this is the reality of starting a business. It just is. So what we want to do is when we feel ourselves getting frustrated, when we feel ourselves losing motivation, when we feel ourselves losing the drive and the determination and the excitedness that we once have, what we need to do is use that as a signal. That's the trigger. That's what, I once had this and now I'm feeling different. Why am I feeling different? The reason I'm feeling different is because I've come up against this obstacle, this roadblock. Okay, now that we have that, now we get to do the work. And I'm not saying this is easy at all. And the easier way to do it is like give you some sort of talk about grit and determination. Talk about like you just gotta stick within. Go keep working. It's about burning the midnight oil. And it's about outworking the competition. To me, that is a way, but it's also a sure way to more frustration and more headaches and more loss of motivation. And you're just grinding yourself down until you turn to dust. And to me, I don't espouse the grind, because as anyone who's listening to this podcast, which I know you have, it's about balance. And it's about balance and understanding, and it's about awareness and understanding when we are getting knocked off centered, and this is knocking you off center. So what we have to do is go, this is knocking me off. Okay. Can I control this? We ask ourselves all those questions that we talked about for the last 9 years or whatever it's been on this podcast. And we go, okay, am I having a victim mindset here? Am I thinking like a pessimist? Am I just trying to, it's okay, it'll work out, and if I just work harder, the optimist? Or am I going into the realist? This is why we have these conversations. We go back to this framework over and over and over again. Yes, it started with me trying to create the world's fittest athlete. And I believed that this was at the core of it. Yep, we want to make sure we are building work capacity and be able to take less breaks than other people when we're doing sets of 50 thrusters. But really what I believed was from the inside out, what are we trying to build? We're trying to build a level up the mindset. And it starts with this. Am I a pessimist? Am I a victim? Am I an optimist? Like, no, it's going to be okay. And as long as I, stick this out, or if I have this next conversation with this, it's going to all work out. Or am I a realist that just understands that this is part of the deal? This is it. Or, am I that highest level? In the past, we kind of talked about this as the warrior. We used to call this as a curious competitor. It's like Patrick, we've had this competitor mindset. And I really believe this. Like, this makes this hits home in a big, big way. We've misinterpreted in a big way what it means to be competitive. And competition is very triggering for a lot of people, because it's like pitting people against each other, and there's winners and there's losers. And, we see what happens when little Johnny is overly competitive and he cries after every time he strikes out, and we go, oh, he's just that's the downside of to me, that is totally missing the true fundamental understanding of what it means to have a competitive mindset. And that competitive mindset is, I want the challenge. I don't want to be like little Johnny striking out. I don't want you to throw me softballs. I don't want dad to pitch to me underhand, because I know what I can do there. That's not a challenge. If I hit every single one, up against the wall in right field, that's not I'm not getting better doing that. So dad, throw it to me overhand. Okay. And then from there, throw it, give it to me, not 40 miles an hour, chuck that thing in there, dad. I want to feel like I'm being challenged, because that's why, because that's where growth happens. And I love Tim Galloway talks about this in The Inner Game of Tennis. And he has such a couple really good points on this. And the first one is, we sort of know this intuitively, but we never pull it out. Surfers, like a proficient surfer, they sit out there in the ocean waiting, and they let a wave go by, and they let the next one go by, and they let another one go by. Patrick, why do surfers not jump on if they jump on the first one, they surf more. They get more surfing in. But instead what they'll do is they might sit out there for 5, 10, 15 minutes, letting waves go by. Why would they do that?
Oh, well, I imagine the only logical reason is they're waiting for the right one.
Exactly. What's the right one?
That I don't know.
One that challenges them. It's one they're waiting for the
one right on the edge.
Right on the edge. Exactly right.
Doable but difficult.
Doable but difficult. Right. So something as uncompetitive as not competitive surfing, not on the tour, but free surfing. The people that want to go out there and feel the ocean and connect with nature and do it for the spiritual aspect of it. Even people that are so disassociated with competition, the way we've been told what competition is, what are they doing? They're waiting to compete against or with the wave to see if they can pull out something better inside of them. That's what's happening to entrepreneurs multiple times a week. You can't go through a week as an entrepreneur without coming up against a challenge. Now, when we come up against that challenge, what's our mindset? Do we say, God, I wish I could avoid this? Or do we go, this is the thing, this is the challenge. This is what I need to become the person I want to become at a really high level. I want this challenge. So this is where we take this framework, this phases of mindset, and we pull it and we insert it into everything from when we get stuck in traffic and we get annoyed to when someone says something bad about you on social media, to when the boss says, hey, can you come and work on Saturday nights? This isn't a level of complacency and just it's the opposite of that. It's going, okay, this is life. First, accept reality. This is part of the deal. Don't try to change reality. You're not going to try to change the way that these developers were incompetent. You're not going to do that. You go, okay, this is where I got to flex my muscles as an entrepreneur. This is what it means to be successful. And if I want to be a successful entrepreneur, this is a chance that I get to hone those skills. Is it how to work on renegotiation? Is it how to next time come up with better clarity of roles and responsibilities, expectations? Do I need to structure compensation, incentive differently? Do I need to vet people differently? What we understand now is we're learning, we're growing, and we're evolving. That's what's happening as an entrepreneur, because I was listening to somebody from George Clooney the other day. He says, and George Clooney is such a good example. They write about him in Obstacle is the Way, Ryan Holiday. He's such a good example of this. He just went emphatically. It's like, the clip was, we learn nothing from success. There's nothing to be gained from success. Success is you hire somebody and they just do it beautifully. Like if this person had hired this web developer and the web developer just did it beautifully, exactly like above and beyond your expectation, cool. Okay, you're moving forward, but you actually haven't developed as an entrepreneur at all. Like you have gotten no better. You just got, quote, lucky or whatever it is. I actually say unlucky because you didn't get to grow and evolve. So as George Clooney said, it all happens from when we are pushed up against the fringes of failure, when we're up against that real challenge, or when things don't go as expected. That's when we learn and grow and evolve. And to pull it back full circle, if the ideal team player is this thing on this really wide spectrum, how can we be the right team players for humanity? This is more than just about you becoming an entrepreneur. This is how you're becoming a better person to further the human race. Like we want you to become as awesome as you possibly can. And this business venture is just another platform that you can use to grow your character traits. That's let's do those things. Like that's the ultimate goal. Can we grow who we are as a person inside? And we're using these different experiences and platforms as tools, as mechanisms to try to level up. If we lived in a vacuum and we never had any experiences, you just lived in the Garden of Eden, there's no room to evolve and grow because there's no challenge, there's no hardship, there's no struggle. This is the time now, and now you get to level up.
One of the things you said that I think is really interesting and important to point out, and it obviously I think has it's very clearly seen in entrepreneurship or even athletics to a degree, which is the folks who we admire, whether they're friends or just people we know of, the thing that they are doing differently than everybody else tends to be when they hit this point of, call it whatever you want, frustration, disappointment, whatever. They're the ones who sort of do what you're describing, which is saying, okay, and next.
Yeah.
Whereas a lot of people, and the reason why most people aren't wildly successful in, again, entrepreneurship or athletics or any of these sort of environments where it's easy to see winners and losers, is they hit that point and they go backwards. They say, oh, that fire, that's too hot. I don't want to touch that. I didn't know I was going to get burned here. I wasn't expecting to get burned here. I don't like being burned here. I'm going to take 3 steps back. Versus what you're describing, which is, oh, yep, that's hot. I don't like that, but that's not a reason for me to take 3 steps backwards.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's the...
So how do we... What's interesting about that is that very few, in my own experience with people I know, very few people walk into these environments ready for that. It's less like, I know it's coming, and more like, oh, that's interesting, moving forward. So how do we get ourselves to a place where we kind of expect it? Because that's kind of how you started here, which is like, we need to be expecting these things, not reacting to them when the inevitable does happen. How do we start to learn to expect them so that we see them coming so that we can prepare ourselves mentally for them?
We had a poster in our gym called The Process. And this was our process for becoming an elite athlete. If you wanted to make it to the games and potentially win the games, it was a matter of following the process. And it had, I don't know, a dozen different mantras on it. the biggest one, it was one of those like word art things, like, it was different sizes, different fonts.
Yeah.
The biggest one on it was expect adversity and expect to overcome it. Like, how weird is it to actually expect anything else? Like, you're trying to win the CrossFit games. Do you not think this is going to be hard? Like, do you think that this is going to be easy? Do you think that you're going to feel good every day? Do you think that the judge is always going to give you the benefit of the rep on every one? Do you think that every workout is going to line up with your wheelhouse? Do you think that you're not going to fall out of podium contention? Do you think that you're not going to get sick? Do you think that a competitor is not going to, or someone in your training partner is not going to beat you on certain days? And you just take that to entrepreneurship, and you take that to life. It's not about negative visualization, which is what people, it's not about, okay, so you want me to just like think the worst case or like doomsday prep all the time? Not that at all. Remember, what we want to do is not lower expectations. I want you to have the highest, I expect you to overcome. That's the expectation. The expectation is not to control your reality. The expectation is when reality doesn't line up with your expectations, I expect you to overcome that situation. I expect you to walk through this with courage and grace. That's the expectation. That's what we have control over. That saying of, focus on the circle of control, focus on what you control and ignore the rest is so cliche at this point that people have lost what it means. The thing that you have control over is simply one thing. When things go wrong, how will you respond? And I don't care how my athletes act when things are going well. If I was a football coach and we were up by 24 points at halftime, and the team is in the locker room going like, we got it. We're going to crush them. We got these guys. Like, let's go, guys. Team. We're a team. Keep executing as a team. I know that that's how they're going to be talking at halftime when they're up by 24. What happens when they're losing by 24 at halftime? Is that the same narrative? Is that the same conversation? Is that the same response? Because it should be. We should have the same level of focus and determination regardless of circumstances. That's what character is. We talked about this in a recent podcast, is your personality is how you act in peacetime. Your character is how you act when you're challenged. As a coach, that's all I really care about. That's all I really care about is when you are challenged, how do you respond? To the point where we'd manufacture challenges. I was thinking about this today, actually, when I was working out. It's weird how my mind goes to different things when I'm working out. But I can remember I was actually going through this, right? I did a really hard workout today, and I was like, I'm being challenged. And I was like, how am I going to respond to this? And I was thinking about how other challenges. I used to, when Matt Fraser would be overhead squatting in our gym, I used to take a resistance band and just drape it, tickle his ear with it and run it across his head. And, I remember why I thought of it, because my shoelace came loose. My shoelace came undone. And I was like, I could feel myself get frustrated. I was like, and I went, whatever, this is not that big of a deal. And if I'm getting frustrated, if I need everything to be perfect in order for me to have the drive and determination and the inspiration, that's not a very formidable being. So we would manufacture challenges. I would untie athletes' shoes in the middle of a set of, front squats. I would, make them super uncomfortable by running a resistance band across from one ear to the next across their back. I would manufacture challenges by saying, there would be shuttle sprints, and I would be a bad judge. I would say, you didn't touch that line, go back and touch the line. Because all I care about is how they respond to the adversity. That's really that's a coach's job. When push comes to shove, can you stay focused? And if you think about it as an entrepreneur, when push comes to shove, can you stay focused? Or do you lose inspiration? Do you lose motivation? Everyone's got that when things are going perfect. Another way to say that is everyone's got that when they're planning on starting a diet, Monday of May 1st, I'm going to get so ripped for summer. Because it's far enough away that you don't have to actually do the thing. The hard thing is when somebody's like, hey, would you like a cookie? Like that's, how do you respond when you're being challenged? You know that the cookie's not good for you. You know if you want that certain body, if you know if you want to feel and look a certain way in the summer, you have to say no to that cookie now. Well, now you're being challenged. How do you respond? This is, people talk all the time about willpower. It's not about willpower. It's about understanding, like order of operations in the terms of like the way that your brain is going to go when you're triggered. And triggers take so many different forms and shapes and different sizes. Can you understand the multitude of the way that those present themselves in your life, in athletics, in your challenge, in your quest for better health and feeling and looking and performing better, in creating great relationships, in creating a really positive relationship with yourself, in your business, whether you're an entrepreneur or you work for somebody else, or you're an artist or whatever it might be. It's an impossibility. It is not going to happen where we don't get knocked off course. It's impossible for that not. So the only thing that we do know, and you know this because you used to film it, you made a video of it, is the way I would lead off my comp train camps, is the only thing that we know is things are not going to go according to plan. That's the only for certain. When we're training for the CrossFit Games, the only thing I can guarantee you is things will not go according to plan. Cool. Like that's actually our reality. The only reality that we have is that things are not going to go according to plan. So now the job is responding to the fluctuating circumstances. That's our job as human beings. Stay the course. The course changes, but you stay on the course.
Maybe last question to wrap up and go back to Georgie's question a little bit. When somebody catches themselves, recognizing, I've lost my inspiration for this. I've lost my motivation because it was harder than I expected, or because it's failed 3 times and I don't know if I have a fourth in me. Where does a person begin to get themselves back to a place where they recognize this challenge is not the thing I run away from, but this is just indication that I need to continue to move forward? Is it like, what is the process, or what do you advise as a process to get from demotivation to moving again?
There's a whole host of tools that can be used for this, from upregulating emotions, like, okay, let's get inspired. What did bring me, this is what people talk, like, why did you start this project? What was the thing that inspired you in the beginning? So you upregulate those, like, I could have so much impact, I could have freedom, like or you upregulate emotions. People think that emotion, we've been sold a really bad bag of goods where people are like, you don't have control of your emotions. That's bull crap. That is total crap. You have control over your emotions. It just takes work. It takes a lot of work. And the way you can do that is by a whole bunch of these tools. Upregulate, or you could downregulate. Like when you feel these things, like, okay, like, and you could have perspective. You could zoom out. You could go into a premortem. Like, okay, I'm going to die one day. Does this really matter all that much? There's so many different tools that you can use. And we should do a podcast one day on go into depth on all of the different tools that we could use to actually modulate this response mechanism. But the biggest one by far and away, and we talked about this, I think it was before the podcast started, is awareness. Like until you have the awareness of I'm being knocked off centered, until you have that, you don't get to play the game. Like you're on the sidelines. You're a spectator. You're a leaf being blown in the wind. You have no control. The moment you go, ooh, I can feel myself, which Georgie has this awareness. He's going, listen, I can feel myself getting frustrated. I can feel myself losing inspiration. I can feel the motivation dripping out of me. Cool. Now that's a high level part of awareness. Now that we're there, you've stepped onto the playing field. Now you got to play the game. But you going like, oh, the fire's too hot, I'm going to step away, is you going back on the sidelines. We got to stay in there and then just use the tools, and they're everywhere. The first one is awareness of the self-talk. There's a narrative going on through your head, which is probably storytelling and not truly accepting the reality, because we like to form stories about things. We'd rather have a story than accept a truth. In this case, what is the truth? The truth is this happens all the time. This is what you signed up for. That's the truth. So that's, now that we understand that that's the truth, we can stop with this guy sucks and like, man, he pushed like all the things and I sunk cost and all the like. No, like let's level up from the victim. Let's work through the pessimist. If we can hang out with the optimist, okay, cool. But let's just start to accept that reality. And like that to me is tool 101, is just understand where are we classifying the narrative. And if we can get to the realist, and the way we get there is all these, you can upregulate, downregulate, zoom out, perspective, postmortems, like all of these different things. It gives us a sense of, am I going to, perspective is this going to matter in 5 years? Like, is this life or death? Is this the biggest thing? Am I more concerned with what other people are thinking about me right now? I'm thinking about myself and my ability to be an entrepreneur. And like all of that stuff goes through our head, which doesn't serve us. And if we can figure out the things that are serving us, then we have the ability to move forward. If we are overly emotional, you're stuck. But the kid throwing a temper tantrum is not improving the situation. So we have to understand where we are. Are you the rational, balanced, level-headed that can actually figure out what the best path is to go forward? Or are you some fraction, some level of the temper tantrum freaking out kid?
Love that. All right, we're going to wrap it up there. Thank you, Georgie, for the question. We're going to be back with a round of permission in just a minute. But first, a quick word of thanks from a sponsor. Gym owners, listen up. If you're looking to spend less time on your laptop and more time on the gym floor, consider giving CompTrain Gym a look. Head to CompTrain.com, start your 14-day free trial of their daily time-tested gym programming. Imagine the time and energy you'll save by not having to spend hours in front of the screen writing programming. Instead, you can pour more of yourself into becoming a better leader and running a better gym. Plus, think about all the conversations and opportunities you won't be missing out on anymore. If you're ready to take your gym to the next level, visit CompTrain.com, start your 14-day free trial. CompTrain.com. Don't wait. Your gym's success is just a click away.
I'm really proud of this because of the level of vetting that the programming goes through before it gets to them. I write the programming. I do the programming myself in a class, which is really important. I do it every day in the 7:30 class, and then I coach the 9:30 class. And then after I coach my class, I pull my coaches in and talk to my coaches about how to coach the class well. Then from there, we bring the programming to the gym. So it's been through so many different levels through me, which is why I feel so proud of this product.
All right. Again, CompTrain.com to start your 14-day free trial. All right, we've got a shout out from Melissa, and then we've got a quick round of permissions. I've mentioned this shout out before, or mentioned this note before, so folks will at least recognize it. It's from Melissa. She said, I want to write in and ask if you've heard of the 1,000 hours outside challenge. The idea is to spend 1,000 hours outside in a year. I tracked all of 2023 and was shocked when I only made it to 500, even though I thought I could have easily achieved this goal. For 2024, my goal is to make it to 1,000 hours. And one way I'm doing that is to take all my work meetings outside in all weather. Shout out to you. I work from home at a desk job, and I'm also in Southern Maine. So basically, Melissa and I are going to become best friends because I think we're neighbors. So I have to be very intentional about getting outside in all seasons. I feel that. My husband actually decided to take on the challenge as well. So we have a little competition going, but it's fantastic because we're both equally motivated to spend more time outside. I wanted to share because I thought you both and or your listeners might be interested in the challenge as well. If you go to www.1000hoursoutside.com, there are fun printable tracking sheets. It can also be something fun to do with your kids. I've been a longtime listener since day one, and I was listening to your latest podcast. It just got me thinking that you guys have not really talked about you talked much in the connect bucket about connecting with nature, and it really is important and beneficial to our health. I found your podcast when I was well into my CrossFit training back in the day, but now raising young babies, CrossFit has taken a backseat, and I'm focusing more on the other factors where I can, connecting with nature being a big one for me. So I agree, Melissa, we don't talk about connecting with nature. We do mention it when we talk about that bucket, being connecting with ourselves, connecting with nature, connecting with others. But I agree that we don't spend too much time, but I love this as a challenge.
Yeah, absolutely. It's one of the things that, like Melissa, Heather and I have been more and more aware of this. And I track if I get outside each day. That's actually, it's one of my trackables. I have 20 trackables a day, and that is one of them. And it is, just like Melissa, living in the Northeast, it is eerily shocking what reality is and how little, I mean, oh my God, it's frightening. Very different in the summer. I shouldn't say that. Some summers are, it depends on the work, right?
Yeah.
But at least you're outside. For me, I'm outside with kids' sports practices. You know, a lot of ocean and time on the summer. But winter, it's why we ski on the weekends, because otherwise you live inside, and it's super detrimental to your health. It really is.
Yeah. It reminds me of the step challenge we did last year at some point. I think Cole was involved in that one. And just the tracking of it makes you realize, you know, the difference between where you think you are and where you actually are. And I think Melissa came to that. I think I would too if I started measuring this. But one of the things I'm excited about, and I just kind of told you about this before we recorded, but inside of the premium membership, one of the things I really want to do, or one of the things we've talked about doing, is also doing some challenges, doing some things that we can do together, that we can talk about, that we can do together to get better at these kinds of things. And so one of the things I want to do, and I think we're going to start it in April through June, is just do a 90-day challenge of getting outside for what is the equivalent of the 1,000 hours for the year. So we're going to try to aim for 250 hours outside over the course of those 90 days. And real quick, I think you did the math. I think it averages like 2 hours a day for those 90 days. So that's roughly what we're looking for. So again, another reason to jump into the premium membership. You can come do that with us. We're going to kick things off sometime in April and do that for 90 days. So thank you to Melissa for pointing us towards the 1,000-hour challenge, and we'll have some fun with it ourselves.
Cool.
All right, cool down real quick. We'll do a round of permission, which when we take an opportunity to give folks out there, give each other permission to do something that perhaps we should be doing, but are not. I'm going to go first.
Go for it.
All right, I'll go first. This is as they've been for me. I actually really like this one. I really like when we do the joy, and I really like I'm starting to really like this one as well. So these are always things that I've had to first give myself permission for, and I'm sharing that. And so something I did last week, which is I blocked off on my calendar. It was a little bit more than half a day to just work on things that were important, but not urgent in any way, shape, or form. Things that I have been on my mind, and like I want to spend a couple hours thinking about that, or working on that, or making a couple steps towards that. And as you know, as we know, as it often happens, is our days get filled with things that have a deadline, and that deadline is, tomorrow or the next day or 2 hours from now. And so the thing I'm giving folks permission for is, like, do your best to block off on your calendar, uninterruptible. Do not cancel this. Give yourself 3 hours or 4 hours to work on something that has been on your mind, that you know is going to be really important and valuable if you can make real inroads towards it. And then don't cop out on that day, because things happened. This happened on last Friday. Like, things came in that part of me was like, I should just take care of that now. But I put it on my calendar. I'd committed to it. I'd said, no, I pushed this stuff off, or I've been waiting for the right time to work on this for weeks or months. And so the day came, and I gave myself the time, and I got the stuff done, or at least I gave myself the hours to do it. And so my permission to folks out there is to find a day, pick a day out, pick a day 2 weeks from now when there's nothing on your calendar yet, block it off. And then when the day comes, actually stick to it.
Cool. Easier said than done.
Much easier said.
It's hard.
But
we talk a lot about this, and it's hard. But it does feel very, very good when you do it. So permission granted. Yes.
What do you got?
Okay. Mine is, permission to be quiet and not share your side of the story.
That's a hard one for folks.
So next time you go to like a a place where people kind of know people loosely. So as parents, we get in this like soccer practices or get-togethers with the school, or someone's having a party or whatever it might be, or seeing people. Just listen to the way conversations go, and it's when you kind of become aware of this. I'm sorry, I'm going to apologize ahead of time, but a lot of conversations in small talk, I'll say it that way, is just people sharing their experience with the topic at hand. So an example would be, you meet people at whatever, a party, at a school function, whatever it might be, and the weather's really bad. Someone goes, I almost spun out on the way here. What's the next person going to say? Oh my gosh.
Their drive.
Yes. Somebody with their drive. What's the next person going to talk about? This one time back in college when I actually flipped a car. What's the next person going to talk about? Like, oh my gosh, you wouldn't believe this, but . And like, it's just my turn to tell my story of it. My turn to tell my story of it. My turn to tell my story of it. My permission that I'm granting is to not share your story. It's to ask questions about their experience. And this came to light because we were riding on a chairlift last week skiing, and we were somebody that we met was talking about going to, I think the story was that they were going to Jackson Hole, which is this amazing ski area in Wyoming. And they were telling a story of being out there and, getting a new fresh thing of snow. And they were out there with their family. And Heather and I had just been out there last year with our family. It would have been so easy to, okay, now our turn to tell our story about our experience at Jackson Hole. Instead, Heather asked more questions about their experience. We think that when we tell our side, we're connecting more. But all we're doing is spotlight, my turn. Okay, turn the spotlight, your turn, monologue. And what everyone else is doing is going, okay, when it's my turn, I'm going to tell more about mine. And it's this, it ends up creating really shallow levels of connection. But we do it because it's our best, we feel like it's our best way to do it. And I'm not saying never do it, because shared experience do pull people together, and if somebody's going through cancer or divorce, sometimes you sharing that, like your level of vulnerability and the hardship that you went through at the time, there is a time and a place for sure. But there also is a time and place to go, that sounds hard. And ask them questions. Or in this case, that's amazing. Like, how long were you out in Jackson? Did you ski this? Were you able to, have you seen the Kings and Queens of Corbett's? Were you there during that event? And
yep.
It's my permission is to allow people not to share their experience, but to ask questions instead.
I love that. That's such a good point. I'm going to try that. Cool. Thank you. And thank you to Heather for once more pointing us towards the light. She's great at that. Hi, my friend. Thank you. Thank you right out there for sending us questions. Again, www.chasingexcellence.email. Get in the free newsletter. We'll send out a link with a form. You can get your questions into a future episode. And of course, while you're there, consider jumping into the premium membership for all of the fun things that we've got planned. Thank you, Ben. We'll be back next week for a new episode of Chasing Excellence.